It could be talking about singing. Now on the boat, it was a black bunch down in the hole, and the only duty I had on the boat, I was supposed to go down there and stand for 2 hours during the day for God.
Oh.
And those guys could sing. They had a tune all of their own, and they were good at it.
Yeah.
Leave here with them.
That's
For it.
right.
Well, he had told Dad about you.
But anything.
Well, you're off
Don't
the
put
path.
that
There's a guy behind me had
Yeah,
to see whether I
right.
hit anything or not.
Right,
Yeah,
that's the time.
it was funny. Like,
You were 85.
Silverman, you probably know
Well, that's the reason I never knew you there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I
In
did.
what class of
I was in 44D.
44?
See
Were you,
that?
Shakes
I had
you could
trouble
eat or
with
something like
the first plane.
A couple of phrases.
Yeah.
For some reason, it
They used to
was
trade,
a double plane. It was
liquor
five
ration,
planes.
an ounce of
What was
liquor.
it?
I
Every
forget the name
mission
of that, but
I never drank.
I trained the
So I always give it to
PC-19
somebody.
officers.
Sometimes we would take
One wing.
cigarettes,
Well, this
Yeah,
was
he
back
did.
then.
for eggs,
Yeah,
fresh
a lot of
eggs.
people trained. That was supposed to be good
The,
for
the local and general
Yeah,
people, you know.
everybody, yeah.
I mean, that's what you do.
Only
Pass
time
your
I did
time.
a step
Or you go in town and you come back, you know.
was in
Then next morning you take off again, go fight a war for a while, and you come back. Sometimes you go out. Nothing much happens, you don't see anything. You just see diving down, you blow something up. You don't see they're shooting back at you, you know, you don't see you come back and you
you
land.
know, in training, they wouldn't let us
No.
do it.
Just to give you an example, you get a kick out of this.
I am.
Every time we would land,
in that
when we dive at the end of the runway, you break fast, drop your wheels in flaps, curl around, come down here and set it down. But we were so nuts.
He came down over that tip.
Whenever a guy comes in, especially if it's a little hot, if he makes a good break, everybody looks at their watch. They watch a second hand. They count the seconds. From the time he breaks till he's down, not bouncing, down, count how many seconds. Well, once you get up to about 14, 15 seconds, they don't bother looking anymore because you're not in the running.
Oh, it was a game.
You gotta get below 15 to even get interested.
Ah.
And you all but you risk your life every time you make that break. You make that break and you wrap out around as hard as you can. And when you think about it, it's kind of stupid, you know, but boy, I used to rack out over, I put my head, now you can't even see, right? I put my head down so I don't black out. I pull that son of a gun so hard, go around, and quick look up. I get around here and just about flop it out when it's out of speed. You gotta lose all your speed in the turn, right? The harder you turn, the more speed you lose. The idea is to get around fast as you can, lose all your speed, and set it down.
Set it down.
Well, I mean, what kind of war is that? I'm saying that's the way it was like kids in high school or something. We did that all the time.
I never did that.
I can remember doing something like that.
Well, you might as well make it fun, huh?
I'll tell you one day, I'll give you an example. It's crazy, but it'll be interesting. Every time you go past some friendly airfield, you know, you give them a little show. Of course, you don't want them to think your outfit doesn't have anything on the ball. And when you go by, you give them a little something when you're going by, you know? Okay. But one day, I left our field, and I went down to the Foggia area. That's where the heavies, bombers were.
Yeah.
Well, some of the guys that I came over with went down to this 325th, I think it was, checkerboard, yellow, black checkerboard, P-51s, right? So I went down to visit those guys that I came over with, you know, and I forget the guy's name. he was already an ace. It was only about 3 weeks after we
What
got
was he flying?
P-51s.
Yeah, that was a beautiful plane and a half flying.
Anyway, so I went down there and saw him. You know, I landed down there, and he took me out to his plane and showed me, yeah, I said, boy, it's a sweet looking airplane. He says, yeah, it's nice. He says, you want to take it up? I said, yeah, okay. So I get in and he says, yeah, there's that thing there, and you do that. And don't forget to take your filters off when you get up, you know, because it takes away from the power of your engine. And you have to have a filter on when you're traveling on the ground so the dirt doesn't fly up into your coolers and all that stuff. I remember how to remember that. I often forgot. But this time was first time. So I took off. Boy, as soon as I'm going, boy, by the time the plane starts to feel light, I already laid a wing over, and by the time it got there, I felt right at home, and I took off. I flew around a little bit, and I wasn't too far from our field, or flying, you know, it's pretty
Where
far,
were we
but
at?
it didn't take long, so I flew up to our field. And I don't remember where we were at the time, but when I got up to our field, I looked the field over, and I come screeching down there, and I buzzed that field right on the deck, and I did everything I could think of. I took it up, did loops on the deck, and I buzzed it upside down, and everything you can do, I did there. And then I took off and went back down to the 325th, and I landed down there and taxied in, and I forgot about it. I got my plane later on, I come home, right? It was only a half hour, 3/4 hour drive, and I come home, and when I get home, some of the guys were saying, hey, Page, you should have seen that guy with the checkerboard. He give us a show here, you never saw anything like it.
Was
And
it
they're telling
Joe making a speech or something? Was somebody making a speech when you did all that?
Oh no, that's something else. No, this was another thing. I had a B-51. First time I ever flew a P-51.
I didn't know you did that.
Well, that's what I
Where were
did.
you located?
Down in Foggia, they were flying. The guys that came over.
I know
for
that,
this-
but where were we?
Well, I don't remember exactly. But
I don't remember that deal.
well, you may not have been there at the time. You know what I mean?
You probably were me.
No, the ground crew always knew it was me. They're the ones like me because I could have given them a show.
You did.
If we had money, if we had gas left when we get back, I always put on a little show before we land. Yeah, one time when I come back, I put on the show, and I go back and park my plane, and I go away to debriefing, you know. And my crew chief's waiting for me out there, Bob. And he says, come here, I want to show you something. We get back to the revetment, he's got the side patch, one of the patches screwed off. You take a look in there. I look in there, and there's a hole in the bottom of the plane about that big. And he's looking there, I look in there, and there's a tubing about that big, goes back to work your elevators. Instead of wires, they have a tube goes, I didn't know that. There's a tube goes back there, and they use that.
Oh, you mean the cables went
Yeah,
back in the tube?
yeah, whatever. You know, I think the tube itself acted as, instead of cable all the way, part of it was a metal tube. You know what I mean? So it's a firmer thing than a cable, you know. Anyway, well, this thing come through the bottom, went right through that metal tube, and it was just hanging by like it was like that. A little bit was holding there, a little bit was holding there, but right through the darn thing.
You mean?
And I was putting on an air show with this plane before I landed.
Somebody had shot a hole in it?
Yeah, on the mission. I didn't know it. Well, that's an example. Where was I? Back to the other one. When I come back, they're all telling me about this guy. And I don't tell them anything. I say, yeah, boy, that sounds good. Yeah, you come over there and he buzzed over here upside down. He told me all about it. Best show we... When they got all done, I told him, I said, well, you know something? I said, that was me checking out in the 51. And they couldn't believe it. I don't know if any.
I never knew you did that.
No, everybody didn't know it. But some of the ground crew, if you're around, I don't know. I never talked to them about it. But I'm sure if there's some around remembers this. If anybody remembers getting buzzed by a checkerboard B-51, it was a good job. And there wasn't many, it was a good job, let me tell you.
Must have been a
It was me.
Well, I remember one thing when we were at Yacy. You came down over our tent area.
The mess hall.
And whatever it was, but anyway, I was looking right at you. I would do those things, but not down on the ground. I was up in the air when I do anything like that. He came right down on that tent, and real smooth. Dick got P-47, went right over on his back.
That's right.
Stopped. Went right over the other way, went over this way, back and back. In no time flat. It was just a few seconds. And right down less than, I'd say 50 feet off the ground.
I was scraping through tree tops. I remember that. And what I did after that, I remember that too. The mess hall was in that same tree up there, or tents were around it. I come down and I buzzed the mess hall, and they say it ruined all the food.
No kidding, I never heard.
All the dirt flew all the food.
But
This was supposed to be a war.
That's what I was telling you. See, it was like kids, you know.
Some of them anyway.
And you got married afterwards?
I didn't even know him at that time. No, I met him when he came over here.
see, if he'd have been by me, I was engaged to my wife before I went overseas. So I quit after
You were smart.
time enough to, I had 89 missions, and 80 was considered a tour of duty. But one fella had just gotten killed. He'd flown almost 150 missions, and he was a good guy, but you know, odds are against you if you keep up with it.
That's right.
Right.
You used your head there.
Oh dear. Well, that's great. It's fun.
It was an advantage to be a young kid.
That's why they want young people.
Yeah, that's why they want young people.
Yeah.
Don't know anybody.
Oh yeah. You were a little older. You wouldn't.
I'll tell you another thing, just to,
But
Some
you,
of them wouldn't.
but
tell you another
he
thing.
was one of our
But he would be
best
the
flyers. He had the touch in the plane.
Yeah.
He felt so confident of what everything you did.
That's right.
You were natural
I
born
never
flyer.
felt like I
Did
was
you
taking
ever
a
fly
chance.
in after you got out of the service?
Was I married?
Did you get to fly in it privately?
A little bit.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, not,
In a light plane.
yeah, just
Like a
whatever.
Cessna or
Whoever
something.
happened to have an airplane. Once,
He never got a license though after.
no, but I flew. When Jimmy was down in Houston, there was a guy had a
Cessna?
I forget a stunt plane.
Oh.
Yeah.
Bi-wing, I forget what they call it. An aerobatic plane, they use airships. He had one of these. And he wanted to know if I wanted to take a ride. I said, sure. And I went up and I gotta get this straight. Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, he was with me.
Yeah.
He was with me. But I was fine. I took it up, and I wrung that son of a gun out. That was a sweetheart. I
Yeah.
never flew a plane like that.
Yeah.
It was a real sporty, hot little airplane.
First time you'd ever been in
Stunt,
it?
yeah, stunt thing. Made for that. I forgot, you'd recognize the name, but I can't think of it. But he let me do whatever I wanted. I gave him a real good ride, man.
What did he surprise him what you couldn't do with it?
Oh yeah, when we landed, he loved it.
What you flew was a steerman in primary, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steerman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I first
Yeah.
1919.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I flew, not much, a little bit. Just whoever happened to have an airplane, I'd fly it, you know. I flew with a guy out in,
Well, you were in in Albany, Georgia for
You keep putting me in Albany, Georgia. I never was in Albany, Georgia.
Okay.
I was in Avon Park when you went to Albany, Georgia.
Yeah, and that Stearman there, we'd go to town in Albany, Georgia, and I never drank anything much before, but for 35 cents you could get a bourbon and ginger ale. And I remember down in that bar in the New Albany Hotel, after 2 of those, you met the nicest people in the world. It seemed like they were friendly and that was my downfall. No, I didn't have any problem. I never drank any unless I went to a dance or something. I wanted to relax so I could dance with everybody there. I talked to people, and that was the way it happened there in Albany, Georgia. I liked Albany.
I think I would have liked Albany if I was there.
Yeah. And did you go to Bainbridge, Georgia? No. You didn't? But the only place you went that I was with was Mariana, Florida.
Mariana, Florida.
Okay.
Well, how about Fort Myers?
Oh, yeah. Then we came down here, come from Tallahassee.
Yeah, from Tallahassee.
Yeah.
So where did you get your money?
Mariana, right?
They messed around a whole lot. We were 5 or 6 months.
That was advanced, wasn't it?
Where?
Mariana?
Mariana was advanced, and we got.
You want to hear a story
Did
about
you
Mariana?
remember? Didn't you get your second lieutenant on December the 5th, which was yesterday, in 1943? December the 5th. Had you already flown P-40s for 10 hours when you got it?
Yeah, just about.
And went home. I hadn't flown P-40. Some reason the cloud, so I had to stay after graduation, flew 10 hours.
Yeah.
Then I went back to Richmond, Virginia, and then went to Mariana, Florida, to Tallahassee.
You want to hear my story about the
Yeah,
40s?
yeah, but
Here was my 10 hours of engineering flights in P-40s,
you've
okay?
never been in a plane before that you flew by yourself and they flew with somebody else.
Yeah, HE6, well, we flew HE6s by ourselves.
I know you did by yourself, but your instructor went up with you. It was a biplane.
First time.
Yeah, and this P-40 didn't have a one-seater.
That's right. But we got 10 hours of operational time.
Yeah.
And it was engineering flights. When you went up, you had a mimeograph sheet with spaces to fill in.
What you did.
And you had you had certain things you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
You're supposed to check the temperature when you're doing such and such a climb, how many minutes it took you to do this, and how long this lasted. So when I went up, I noticed when I took off, that plane felt real good, man. That son of a gun felt so nice. I wasn't even off the ground yet, and I knew this was a sweetheart. And so I went along, and as soon as I got up there, I flew away from the field a little bit. I got my clipboard, and I did everything I could do right away. In about 20 minutes, I was done, and I got up there for an hour. So I had all the rest of the time to kill. I look around, and nobody around. I flew away from the field a little ways, and I took it up, and I start ringing it out. I did everything that plane could do. I dove it straight down, straight up, and everything possible you could do with it. And I was just happened to be coming around like this once, and I look out the side, and here comes a guy sliding in on me. I thought, oh, he's great, you know, he's in the P-40. I thought it must be one of the other students on an engineering flight, right? So I let him come right in, and I dip my wing, like, get on, you know, that's what it means, get echelon, you know. He slides in there, and we're going along, and I start doing this, and he's standing with me nice. I said, hey, good, you know, I'm feeling him out.
Did you hear the story?
Then I look over, when we're sort of settled down, I look over at him. He's tucked in nice. You know, I thought, he's doing good. And he peels off his oxygen mask, because he couldn't see anything. Peels off his oxygen mask, and he says, oh, My God, the son of a gun's an instructor.
Was it your
Oh my
instructor?
God! I figured, here it goes. You know?
Was it your instructor that you had in the 1860s?
It was, I didn't know him.
Oh, you didn't know
I
that?
just assumed he was an instructor.
Oh, okay.
Who the hell else would be telling me to put it down? You know? So, anyway, oh, I didn't tell you this part. Before this happened, I might as well tell you this. Before this happened, we were flying gunnery missions with the HE-6. You know how it is, you know. Shoot at the ribbons, you know, with the colored paint on the bullets, the camera hits, you know. And this one day, we're down in the ready room, and this lieutenant, or army guy, you know, he's giving us a pep talk. He says, "You're not getting in there." He's telling us all, you know, got us all together. He says, "You're not getting close enough. You want to get hits, you got to get in close. You're almost shooting out of range." He's looking at those pictures. He's showing us pictures. He says, "You're too far back. Can't you see that?" He's telling us, "You got to get in close." And I'm thinking to myself, Christ, I'm going in pretty darn close. What the heck more does he want, you know? And I was hitting pretty good, but I'm taking it to heart, you know? So, next mission, right after that, we go up. I go up on a mission. I go up in the mission. Boy, I'm getting in close. I just about duck under that thing without hitting it. I did that like a half a dozen. Boy, and then this next time I go, not only do I hit it, and I duck down, and the front end is a lead pipe, about that big around, with a weight on the bottom like that. To hold it upright, right? And it's about that big, with a weight on the bottom. I clipped that weight on the bottom, and went right in the leading edge of my wing, left a big hole.
I didn't realize that.
I left a big hole in the leading edge of my wing. The son of a gun.
In trouble again.
Got in close.
I figured, boy, I'm in trouble
Well,
now.
how did the plane fly after you hit it?
Well, I'm going to tell you. So I thought, holy cow, I'm going to get in trouble now. So
Again.
I'm flying along, and I says, I got to get a Mayday landing. I took it, and I flew it, and it was stalling out at 120. Well, they only cruise around 120, and I'm stalling out. So the wing would stall, and I was, oh boy. So I called, I said, called this out, I says, I need an emergency landing. I says, my plane's stalling out at 120, and
You didn't know why.
well, they know I hit it because the target is spinning around now. It had no more weight on the bottom. It was
They
spinning
could
around.
pull it back in and tow plane.
So they all went in, and I come back. And I'm at the field, and they're talking to me now. I don't know how long they're going to talk to me anymore, but they're talking to me. And I told them what I'm doing, and they felt pretty good about it. I sounded like I was all right. I said, no, that seems all right. I said, as long as it's all right, you can come in. So I come in, and I landed in the very beginning, and like you suppose, I did everything just right. I come in real nice and gentle and like a decent person. I put the wheels down, land on the wheels, full cruising speed. Dropped this bottle, you know, and I used almost the whole runway to slow it down enough to land. And I got it down, and I stopped. And I was just starting to taxi around and start my way back. And here comes this Jeep out to meet me. And he stopped me right where I was. It's okay. They give me a cut. I cut it right where it was. They didn't park it. They're going to tow it away. So there's two guys in it, two lieutenants. Now, at this point, I don't have my wings and I don't have my commission, right? Nothing.
Yeah, he's a cadet.
Yeah, right? And one guy gets out and I get in his spot. He don't say anything to me. He just takes me and we drive off the field.
He doesn't say anything.
He didn't say anything. So just that guy got out and I got in. He took off. We go all the way down the end of the field. We go off the field. He don't say anything to me. I'm sitting there. What the hell's he gonna do? Shoot me or something? We go about a mile away, and he pulls into this spot, and there's like long barracks there. You know how the barracks work?
Yeah.
Well, one of these barracks.
Wood frame building.
Yeah, one of those. We stop at one of those, and we go in, and what's in there but one of those things that they test your depth perception with. It's like a bowling alley, you know.
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah.
the two things down the end. You get up this end of the bowling alley there, and they mix them up so that you don't know where it is. And they say, all right, and you're supposed to put them right alongside each other. So they might be this way. It's up to you to put them so they're like that. So he did that. He's all right. I go like that. Okay. You don't say anything. Somebody down there is marking. They did it about 4 or 5 times, and that was it. Apparently every time I was putting right, I thought I was doing all right. I saw it good. And I waited a minute, and we went out and got back in the car. Now, right now I don't know what the hell's going on. Did I flunk? Is he going to send me to the jail or something? Or am I right? He don't say anything to
You
me.
thought you were going to be washed
He don't
out.
even want to talk to me.
You thought you were going to be
Yeah,
washed
who knows?
out.
You know.
And wouldn't
He
take
didn't
it.
give me any inkling of anything. So finally, we're getting back to the field. He drives right down to the flight line. He says, all right, get out. I says, well, okay, you know. He says, get out. And he drove away.
He didn't tell you
He
anything.
didn't tell me anything. I went into the ready room there where the guys were, you know, and my instructor's there. And my instructor, he likes me. He likes me because he was having fun with me down there. The first time he took me up, you know, you split up. 2 of you go with this guy, and one goes with the instructor.
Yeah.
Practice aerial combat.
Yeah,
You know?
and fly back and forth like you're fighting, dog
Okay.
fighting.
So he got me to go with him, and the other guys went. Oh, he couldn't get on my tail for nothing. I got on his tail. He couldn't shake me off. He tried it again. We did it about 4 or 5 times, and I got on his tail every time. We got back and we landed. He didn't say much, but I could tell he was impressed, you know. And the next time I come down the field there, he's over talking to the other instructors. I can see him over there, and I can tell they're talking about me. They're looking at me, and I don't know what's going on. But apparently he's telling them that I'm a pretty hot shot, you know. And next thing you know, I'm going up with the other guy. I didn't go up with my instructor. I go up with the other guy. He let me to him. We go up there, and sure enough, he put us through a little stuff, you know. Then we're going to break for practice aerial combat. And he took me too. Well, I went through the same thing with him. Well, for about a week and a half there, all I did was fly with different instructors. I flew with almost all the instructors around there. And not one of them could beat me.
Well, you were the most natural.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what happened. He's passing me around. Well, now, first he was a little bit annoyed, I guess. But now he's bragging about me, obviously. And he had me, I went up with, I don't know how many I went up with, but like a dozen of them at least. Certainly everyone that was in our flight. And I don't know how many more there were anyway. And then, right about that time, I come down to the field one day, and I got my sharpshooter's medal from the 45. I got a sharpshooter, and I had a pin on my leg of my fight coveralls. The sharpshooter's medal, just for fun, you know. And what the hell are you doing? Anyway, it doesn't make any sense, you know. But that's the kind of stuff I was doing. Anyway, that's what happened before this incident with the P-40, which was later on. Yeah. So you know how close. At that time, I thought I was a dead pigeon, but I wasn't, because I realized that they know darn right well
That you were a good flyer.
that
You could've handled
I was
it.
doing. They looked up my records, I guess, and my hits weren't bad. And they did just got done telling us, get in there. You know,
Yeah.
big. No, what were they going? They saying to me, I said, well, that's what they told us. It was a matter of record. They were saying you're not far enough. Anyway, I knew I was in the clear on that one, so I relaxed. But when this thing for the P40 happens, it didn't take long for them to remember that little incident.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, holy cow.
What did he say when you got
What's
down?
going to happen now, right?
What did happen when you come
Oh,
down with
what
a
happened?
P40?
No, here's what happened. That incident happened now, and I'm back in my barracks, and I get the word, report to the Commandant of Cadets. Oh, I got all dressed up like you have to do, you know. I never was a very neat soldier in the first place, but I wasn't bad. I got my shoes shined and all that, and I stood in a brace, nice. I went and reported to the guy, and he's sitting behind the desk, and I forget how I got on the subject, but he started to talk about it, and he starts giving me a lecture, sort of. And as he's going on, he's getting more vile all the time. He's cursing and saying, well, you stupid idiot, you're this and that, you know. He's going through the whole thing. But I could tell, I could just sense he was going to let me go. I could tell, I just knew it. So I just put up with it like I did. And I don't know how I looked, but I know how I felt. I felt sure he was going to let me go. After a little bit, you know. And sure enough, when he got all done, he was getting tired of it, I guess. I sure was getting tired of it. And he said, get the hell out of here, and you better learn to take care, you know, give me a little, I can't remember what he said about acting like a cadet for crying out. Don't you have any, you know, whatever. Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, zoom. Out.
That was just before graduation.
Right, that's before.
And that was on December the 5th, 1943.
This was a few days before that. I don't know how
67
many.
years ago.
Right near the end.
So that's when, were you in the same class? Or no?
Well, 43K,
Let
yeah.
me tell you about the rest of that. I have to tell you this, but here's the rest of that. He let me go. That was my first hour, right? My first hour. I still got 9 hours to go.
On the P40.
Yeah, on the P40. So I promised myself, Christ, stay out of trouble for 9 hours. Get your damn wings. Get your commission for crying out loud. I'm telling myself. Next time I took off, by the time that plane was light on the field, well, you know, I could feel it getting like it wants to do something. Oh, man. I'm dipping the wing a little, and oh, no, don't do that. And I got away from the field. I went away and looked around and scoured the sky with my 2020s all over, and I wrung the hell out of that thing.
Well, good.
And I went through 9 more hours
Well, good.
of jeopardy
Yeah.
till I got done.
You felt so comfortable in the plane when you got in it. The first time I started on the P40, I was ready to go. I studied everything we had to study, but it was after graduation. For some reason,
yeah,
I didn't
you
get
were
the
late,
10 hours until after. And before I took off, some guy came in with a P40 on fire, and he didn't make it. He got killed on it. And boy, that did something to me.
Yeah,
But the only thing I can remember was one thing we had to do with the P40. You turned over, and then you split us.
That's right.
And when I did that so quick, boy, that thing would really come
Yes,
around
it
and
did.
black you out if you didn't watch it. And,
You have to write that down.
yeah, right in.
1,200 feet.
Yeah. So I did it 10 hours, and I was pretty conservative with all of that. And then I got to come home, but I'd already got my wings.
Yeah, you already had yours.
In my experience with B40, I was scared to death of that darn thing. Every time I went up, something went wrong with it. It'd overheat or something would go wrong. So
Well, the landing gear was close together. It wasn't like the P.
Yeah, ground loop easy, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you had to be on your toes.
Yeah.
Ground loop.
I didn't have.
And you ground loop with that, the wing always hits.
Yeah, well, I didn't remember, but I didn't have any problem there. But after that thing, I could see that. I saw that plane come in, and it's real scary. You felt so sorry for the guy in there. And,
Yeah. Crazy world.
when all that group, a lot of them flew P-40s, you know, through the desert and all before we got there.
Oh, yeah. Well, they were just switching over.
Yeah.
When we got there,
Yeah.
about that time, they were just switching over from P-40s to P-47s. At that time, I think we get 60 hours in operational training, right? Wasn't it?
I think that's right. P-47s, 60, I think so.
I think it was in operational training. I think we got 60 hours in the whole 2-month period.
I've forgotten.
I think it was. I'm not sure.
Yeah, at Fort Myers. Right here.
Yeah,
Page
right
three.
here.
Yeah.
But whether it was operational or not, we got 60 hours, and what else did we do?
Did you have a low flying altitude mission down over the Everglades during your 60 hours here? Well, my instructor, I don't know, we followed him and right down on
maybe
the
he
deck.
took it.
We went all down there. It was fun until we got, all of us got in clouds and we got scattered and made our way back home. And another thing I could remember was flying here, if you got up a little altitude, you could see Lake Okeechobee.
Yeah, good old Lake Okeechobee.
And
Never
all
get
the way
lost.
across Florida, from one end down to the
Yeah,
tip on a clear day.
Yeah, high altitude mission. We took
Yeah.
high altitude cross country.
Yeah.
One was Okeechobee.
The highest I ever been was 30,000 feet. But did you ever get up that high?
Yeah. We were told to go up high.
I know it.
I got up to 37,000.
30,000, it didn't feel right to think.
Yeah, it's sloppy.
And so I didn't go that high.
I got up to 37. Wouldn't go anymore.
Oh, you tried to do the whole thing.
You
He
pushed
was
it
found
to,
out.
he pushed it to the limit.
Yeah. But he had confidence.
yeah.
Most pilots didn't have. Very few pilots
I did.
had the confidence
Young
that
and
you
foolish
had.
is another word for it.
Well, it could be.
I was a natural. I was
But you know, I never got the training you got because when I they wouldn't even let us do acrobatics in the P-47. They wouldn't. We didn't do any.
P-47?
Yeah, no actual
Could do it.
combat or no stimulated
No?
combat or nothing.
Is that right?
They wouldn't let us do any of that.
Well, what was the reason you augured in at Fort Myers? I mean, you turned over.
I did. I ordered in, yeah. Well, I told you about that.
Yeah, I know it, and you had to dig out under the cockpit. It's the
yeah,
only
that-
thing I remember, but what caused the plane to stop? Was it a dead stick landing or what?
No. I told you about that.
I forgot.
Well, I'll tell you. You weren't allowed to land in remember you had to land in the first third, right?
Yeah.
If you went past the line, you were in trouble. You weren't allowed to do that.
You didn't have
Because
enough
it's
room.
not safe. You're supposed to land in the first third of the field for safety's sake, right? So I was coming down, and I thought, I'll be a son of a gun. I don't think I'm going to quite make it by that line. And I was in enough trouble already. I figured, I better play safe.
Yeah. You
I'll
told
play
me.
safe and I'll go around, you know. So I'm down to about 50 feet or so, hardly moving, and I pull the wheels up and shove the throttle forward. I figure I'm going to go around, be a nice boy.
But the prop didn't do it.
Prop goes into full high pitch, 0, nothing.
Oh.
And I lost all my flying speed right then and there. I had to do something in a hurry.
What, it just flopped and hit?
Went pow! I dug into that sand. I managed to get on the side of the runway. I dug into the sand, just went a little ways, and it stuck in, and I went over my back.
You mean that you went clean
Right
over?
over my back.
And that was a lot of weight there that did that.
I
So
didn't
you-
notice that.
Well, I mean,
That's
what
what I
the heck
told
do
you. It was
think that plane weighed?
right after Jack Boyd had bellied in and
Yeah.
and was playing.
Jack told me about that, and you told me about it.
Was this the P-47 you did this in?
Yeah.
Right here in Fort Myers.
See, a
Divot's still out
P-47.
there in Page Field.
a P-47 with all the almond on it weighed 8 tons, didn't
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
17.
15,000 pounds, 16
Yeah.
in that range.
it? And if you had a 1,000-pound bum on each wing,
Yeah,
it was a little slow
more,
and tasty.
Yeah, it was a heavy plane to start with.
But Jack lost power on takeoff, and it was stumps at the end of the runway.
Yeah.
And he said he just landed in them,
Wow,
got out of the cockpit, and went over and stood on the stump for us to come
Yeah.
over and get it.
But his plane burned.
Yeah.
That's what had me worried. That was right before I did this. Jack Boyd's plane burnt when he bellied in. And I'm stuck in that plane upside down. And all I can think of, that goddamn plane just burnt. And I'm stuck in there trying to get out.
Did you dig
I'm
with your hand?
digging.
It must have been sand
I
in
dug
there.
myself a space, about that much space, and I tried to get through right away. It was too early. I had to get back and dig some more.
Well, it must have been sand there.
It was sand. Yeah, real loose sand, like a beach.
You're lucky.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
I was lucky a lot of times.
Yeah, weren't we all?
Yeah, we were.
Yeah, well, you know, when I first got over there, I went up on a trial flight over there in Italy, and I was practicing dive bombing or this sort of stuff, and I pulled up and I blacked out. And when I came to, I think I was in an inverted spin. It's the best I can figure, and I tried to figure out how to get out of that thing. I didn't get that job done, and it finally came out about 500 feet, and the prop was feathered. And luckily, I followed the bow there on out to sea, and I didn't know where it was, but there was the airstrip, and I landed in the mud alongside the airstrip.
Oh, yeah?
What was the airstrip, Cessna?
Well, it's either Fauna or Cessna. I don't know where it was JC or I don't know whether I did any.
Cessna was right close to the...
No, it was before then because I just got over there, and I don't know whether I did any
Was it
flying.
Yacy?
I don't know whether I did any flying at Yacy or not. That might have
Yacy
been
was
Fauna.
real short, and we took off and right over the city. I mean, if you had even 500s on there, it was wobbling when
Well,
you
we had one guy crash into the town, right?
Oh, we did it.
Well, it must have been a Fauna before I ever flew it. Because then when we moved up to Fauna pretty shortly.
In one of those places, the town was on this end of the runway, and the ammo dump was on the other end of the runway. And one guy, one day, I don't know who it was, he went right into town. I don't remember.
I don't remember either of those things. I
But,
mean, I got the feel there, and I just landed along the runway.
It was muddy when you sat there to your tent. We had so much
Yeah, I
rain
remember
and all.
that, but I don't remember whether I flew any at Yacy or not.
We probably did. We didn't fly a whole lot. When it was bad
Well, yeah, I was
weather,
gonna say,
we
I
didn't-
think,
we didn't fly.
When did we move from there to Fauna?
I don't know.
I don't know.
You know, you mentioned the inverted spin. That reminded me that something happened to me once. About, I don't know when it was, about halfway through my career over there. I was going up and we were talking in the ops tent or whatever. We were talking about different things you could do with a plane. And I was writing down a few things that we hadn't tried, you know. And I said, I'm going to go up and try them. And one of the things I wanted to try was a double implement. So I went up this day to do a double implement. So I was doing other stuff. I got up there, and instead of making it, I fell into it.
You were hanging on the prop.
I was, well, just flopping. I don't know what the hell I was doing. But I was at that point, and I fell into an inverted spin. I never was in one before. And I don't remember. I was pretty high. I was playing safe a little bit, you know. I don't know how.
What was the plane doing then? Did it just
It
spin on
was
down?
spinning upside down.
You were upside down.
Spinning upside down, yeah, just like you said.
Well, you didn't know how to kick it out, did you?
No, I didn't know what the. And I tried everything. I tried giving it power. I tried popping. I tried shoving the rudders all one way, shoving the other. Anything I could think of, I tried.
Nothing.
And nothing was happening. One time it flipped over and went the other way. It's still upside down though. Oh, for Christ's sake. And I'm losing altitude. I don't have time to look at anything. I don't know how low I was or what. I'm just frantically working. And just like you said, I got down a little lower finally, and I don't know where I was, but it took hold, and I flicked over into a right side up sort of spin, and just fell into a spiral, and then I got out.
Well, it might have been that you got down in the thick of air. You were up
Oh
in
yeah,
such thin air.
apparently that's what it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
apparently that's what it was.
Well, I
'Cause
only-
got the thicker air.
well,
I
actually-
apparently got control, and I got out of it. But
I
that's
only
what
had
reminded me.
200 feet left when I found the airfield. I mean, what you do with
Were you a
the
spinning?
flaps, put my flaps down and try to, keep up as much as I could. And I just got to the airfield. That's all. I mean, I couldn't have gone any farther.
Yeah, well, see, mine was like a similar experience, but I did finally get control, and I was all right.
Is that the worst feeling you ever had about maybe I won't make it?
Oh no, I had several of them. I don't remember half of them.
Yeah,
Christ.
yeah. Well,
I remember.
you were, everybody counted you as number one. And taking chances of flying that plane any kind of way.
And, I always felt comfortable.
Yeah.
I always
But
felt
that's the thing of it is.
I never felt like I was too risky,
Yeah, well, that's because you felt comfortable.
I'll tell you, I wasn't completely nuts. I used to go up sometimes when you had a nice flat overcast,
Yeah.
and I'd practice some stuff up there. I'd practice flying
On the overcast.
upside down. And I got where flying
Could you
upside down.
handle the plane and make it new turns?
Yeah, I tried everything while I was upside down. And I felt pretty comfortable by the time I come down and show off down on the ground.
So you had practice all that stuff.
I'll tell you another dopey thing I did, I remember doing. When I got back to the States, they gave me a job instructing P-47 pilots who were former West Point graduates who had switched over into the Air Force, and I was, they used me for an instructor for a little while I was back. So I'd take up a few guys
Where was that at?
at Dover Air Base.
Oh,
Dover, Delaware. And so I'd take them up, and I'd have fun with them, they'd give them a good time. Always take them on rat race before we ever quit, And I'm trying to think what I was going to tell you about this. Well, anyway, one of the things, I know I was going to tell you. What I did with him one day was a full thing that is not a very good thing I did. I had been up practicing myself, and I practiced some spots where you could just about fit through, And I'd go through there a couple times.
You've been in the cloud.
No, on the ground.
Oh,
I'd find some narrow spots in place. I'd go down, fly over, and I see I could fit in there, Once I go past, I could look down, I could fit through. Next time I come through down lower, and I know I could fit through, I went right through, Because I already know I fit. I want to go stand in the middle, right? I know I can fit. So I practiced a couple times. So I have them up there, and I'm flying around. They're following me. I take them down there. They're following me. I go right through. They come there and peel off. I never should have done that. Suppose they'd have tried to follow me and did everything.
you would have felt bad if they hadn't made it.
I mean, it would have been an awful thing. I'm saying that everything I did didn't make sense. And that was a dumb thing. I never should have done that.
How long did you stay in the service?
Well, not too long. I went over to Japan.
Oh, you went to Japan?
Yeah, I went to
After he
Japan.
came back to the United States,
I can hear the smoke coming up from way over there. Oh, good.
Yeah, I stayed in
Sit down and have a seat over here.
Nah.
He was instructed here in the U.S. after coming back.
He's telling us all the bad things he did.
When I was in Suzuki, I was flying P-51s.
Yeah.
When I entered a Shia airfield, when I entered the airfield, a little ways down in the town,
Get a tape out of there, please. I'm
electric
about out of
generating
tape.
station.
Oh, you are?
It had 4 stacks.
No, get a tape out of
4
there.
smokestacks. And when you took off, you flew right over that. I always looked at that,
What am I looking
and I thought, I bet I could fit right between those. So, at different times, I would take off and I'd fly down there and I'd get close. And I'd go over them, and I knew when I was pretty close, I knew damn well I could fit because I just went over, you know? So the next time, I took off and I went right through them, and I fit, right? Because I knew it would fit. So one day I was taking off, the guy's following me, right? And he just kept following me, you know? And I go flying along and go right through him. He breaks away. I'm glad he did, you know. But I never should have done that. That reminded me of that one I told you about. And he peeled it off. I told him about it later. I said, you know, I tried that. Later on, I told him, I said, you know, I tried that before. I said, I knew I would fit. See you guys later. One of us has to do something. Get ahead.
This lady had written up about Bajan when he got, so he might, I don't know if you read
Find out the
that.
whole story.
Yeah, written the whole story.
Oh, you heard that.
Heard that.
He knows all about that one.
Yes.
I don't know when I'm going to
Look
go. I
at
just say that I wanted to get out there.
37 was every bit as good as a 51. Every bit as good.
I tell you, it was the safest fighter plane they had.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the 51. It's nimble and it's a beautiful ship.
Yeah.
It's very nimble. But I don't know what the technical roll rate is on the 47 and the 51. It'd be interesting to know. I don't happen to know. But from my experience, I found one as fast as the other on roll.
You could do
Roll
just
that just like that. Just like that. And that 51,
you felt just as comfortable
just
as
as comfortable, and it reacted just as good. Just as good.
it looked pretty in the air.
Oh
I
yeah,
thought.
much more beautiful.
Which turned the tightest, the 51 or 47?
I beg your pardon?
Which one would turn the tightest, 51 or 47?
I couldn't tell for sure. I mean, I didn't have an opportunity to
Really?
fight with another guy in the other plane. You know what I mean? But from what I could judge myself, I'll tell you one thing. I landed at P-47 as far as I remember. Hi.
Phil, hi Rose. I'm still kicking. I just couldn't get away until today, and then I drove in fog this morning for all the way from home to Wichita.
Anyway, like I was telling you, time landings, you know, as I remember, I'm pretty sure my best time was about 12 or 13 seconds.
For what? Yeah.
Break to land.
Oh,
P-47.
Well, I made up
Now,
notes.
when I was over in Japan, we weren't allowed to break on the deck. That was the Army of Occupation.
yeah.
You weren't allowed to break on the deck. You had to stay up 300 feet. Yeah, 300 feet. Why didn't you fuck that through? 3 or
Now
5.
we got some more stories to write up.
You got to be up there before you break. Then you could break, but you couldn't break on the deck.
That's it.
So I couldn't compare one with the other
Never
directly.
get to put anything down.
But I found that if I broke at 300,
I'll see you guys in the morning.
Okay, good night.
see, in a 47, when you lost your speed, and you broke, you had to rack it as tight as you can, losing speed, right? So if this is the runway, you got to break here. because your turn is tightening all the time, and you end up here. You got to brake over here because your circle's getting smaller the whole time.
Well, when you came in landing, did you kind of dive into the airport and then swing around?
I didn't care how I came in fast. However I got there.
Yeah.
Sometimes I came in like this.
Oh, you been rolling?
Sure.
On the coming in landing. Well, that's what I say. You would try things nobody else
Lots
would
of
try.
times I come rolling into the brake.
And then stop and
Stop, I just.
well, you come around to the right place.
But what I'm saying is the P-51, we weren't allowed to brake on the deck.
I wouldn't be here if I tried that.
So I brake up here, but I found a little experimentation. If I came in a little slower, like cruising speed instead of 350 or something, you know, I found up here, if I broke and stayed a little bit to this side, if I broke hard and dropped as I'm pulling around, I had a balance between stalling out that way, and we were down there, and we saw these, I think it was 4,000 pounders laying there, and all this gasoline and stuff blowing around in the fire, burning over there. It's going to come over there. You're afraid it's going to blow up the bombs.
So y'all pushed them over there?
So we quick went over and we got together, rolled. It took a couple of us to roll. It was rough. And we rolled them out of over the way, out of the water, gas, whatever it was. That's what they gave us that. Yeah.
I was always
gasoline. Good night.
Good night.
The whole time. That he's having a good time the whole time.
Yeah.
Good night. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
You got your quota of war stories today.
There he is. Come on through.
You didn't read the manual. This is really good. Oh, you're recording, aren't you?
Yeah,
So you got us.
I got you. Say something.
I got that
Let
the
me
night
s-
before it came.
That's a brand new one.
Yeah, because this is actually my suit that I wore on the cruise when we went out and got these pants.
Ed?
You don't have numbers on it.
You're a grand old flag. Okay.
You're a grand old flag.
Okay.
You're a grand old flag. One more time.
I'm trying.
He never sings in church.
I don't either.
Apple tree with anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. No, 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 don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Till I come marching home.
Put your arms around. I never grown old. Hey.
Well, that's the last one right there. That was which are we going up the hill?
You have to know your joke. Yeah. Oh.
Hey, I could do this every week.
When the wheels go wind and evening is high, I hurry.
Let's get about 10 more up here.
was very hectic. You couldn't find no one that was working because their homes were damaged, and they shut down their business to go and try to repair their homes to get their kids back in homes. They stayed in shelters. They slept on floors in schoolrooms. The state and the county provided a lot of the bedding and material that was used, and they provided food for them to eat. And so Betty and I were very lucky. I think Ashley Weissong was lucky. You didn't have no problems either, did you? But this thing was like a bouncy ball. It hit here and here and there. It went everywhere. It hit one, 6, skipped over 6, hit 5 more in a row. You never knew where it was coming. In my neighborhood, houses behind me had damage, next to me had damage on both sides, and across the street. We were fortunate, we never got hit. I went out and bought a generator because we were without power for 52 hours. When I got home with the generator, the damn power was back on. I still have it sit in the garage. I had an electrician across the street come over and wired my house, so if it comes on again, we would be able to start it up and plug it in.
Save it, Ed, next year's coming.
Right. Well, there'll always be hurricanes, but the fortunate part about a hurricane, you generally have about a week's notice when it's coming your direction. Tornadoes, you have 5 minutes notice. So there's a lot of places up north in Texas and that called Hurricane Alleys or Tornado Alleys. And that is worse than any hurricane because it takes houses, cars, cows, everything flies when they go through you. But anyway, we enjoyed having you. We hope that everything was satisfactory in the hotels. The food was excellent. Now, I have talked to New Orleans. I must have had 40 proposals from New Orleans. They would like to have us. We would like to go, but they don't think the war's over. They, some of the hotels want $150 a night, $28 to park your car on the property, and I don't know, so many things. It would be nice, but I don't think we got that kind of money. Now, for everyone that would be able to afford it, there's probably 10 of us can't. So I think we can maybe chisel these guys a little more for next year. If I can talk to them while we're still here. But I think everything will be back to normal if the damn hurricanes stay away. So, but has anybody else got some suggestion that we can talk about? We don't have to have an answer tonight, but think about it because General Cassidy is leaving the first thing in the morning, and he would like to make some plans. And we've got some wonderful people that are guests that have brought children and grandchildren, and along with Willis Johnson. And if you knew Willis Johnson, he'd drive you nuts. But he was a great guy. I think the pilots called him Mother Johnson, did you?
Harpo.
What?
Harpo. Because he had his hair grow until we cut it off.
Well, Willis and I were left on the beach with a Jeep. Up on the hill alongside of the place was a service squadron. I don't even remember the numbers of it, but it was up there. They used to do damage repairs to the aircraft, like replace wings, replace tails, or something that the ordinary crew chief, which I was, we couldn't do. We weren't allowed to touch certain things in an airplane, except put the gas in the gas tank and the ammo in the ammo guns. But I contacted them when I was over there. Willis took the last airplane and flew over to Sicily or wherever they were in Italy. Then they went on Gibraltar, was it there? Malta. And they invaded Italy, Sicily and Italy from Malta. And by the time I called up to the group, they said, stay where you are until you get notice. Over that period of 4 months, 36 men arrived where I was camped. Where did you come from? I was on leave, and this was my last report place. Okay, you just joined up with me. So we all ate up in this thing, and we had 36 men arrive from hospitals or wherever the devil they were, from all 3 squadrons. I got one Jeep. What am I going to do with 36 men, you know? I went up to the service squadron, and then on top of it, this group moved out and left seven trailers up on the hill, 4-wheel trailers to be towed by a GMC. A Jeep won't tow. But we found some natives messing around with them. We went over to investigate what they were doing, and found out when opening the doors that it was the 86th, 87th, and 85th Squadron supplies, winter supplies. Their overcoats, their extra equipment, there's the officers' kits with suitcases, bee bags. So I went up to the service squadron lieutenant. I said, "This is my problem." He says, "I can't help you, but there's a supply depot down the road 8 miles. Go down and see them. There's a captain there." So I took the Jeep and a couple of guys, and we went down there, introduced myself and talked to him. He says, "Sergeant, tomorrow the British take over this supply depot. We don't even know what the hell's out there. If there's anything you want, take your men and take it." I said, "Well, I need 7 GMCs. He said, "They're out there, brand new ones." "We need food. We're going to be traveling 700 miles across the desert holding these trailers. It's out there, take it. We need gasoline, take it. We need diesel because when we get to where we're going, I think we got a couple of diesel trucks." So we filled these 7 vehicles with supplies to keep us going. Well, we got up to Cape Bon. We traveled across the desert to Cape Bon, pulling these trailers. No one had a gun because they were in hospitals and coming home. I had 1 rifle. I should have asked for some machine guns and stuff, but could have had them, but I didn't think to ask for them. So we traveled this 700 miles across the desert. It took quite some time. We'd stop along the highway. The British had gas stops. The gas stops would be a mile long. They would pile 5-gallon cans for this mile, and when a convoy come along, you just stop at the head, and everybody behind you would stop, and you could fill your vehicles with fuel, leave your empty cans there, and the British that stayed behind filled up the cans for the next convoy coming through. So we ate with the British officers. They didn't know what was going on in the war. We all got a chance to talk to them. And then we went up to Cape Bon, and they were loading ships up there, and we checked in there. "Well, we'll be here for a while. Find a place, there's plenty of tents over there, and sleep in them, and we'll get to you." Well, the Jeep I had was clutch was slipping, so I turned that over to them. They put a new clutch in it and brought it back to me in a couple hours. Then we hooked these trailers up, and when they were ready, they pulled us down, and we were the final stuff on the ship going to Italy. And they backed the trailers in, then hooked the jimmies on, and when we got to Italy, we were the first ones off. On the other end, they told us, we asked where the 79th was. "Oh, it's up the mile at Fano." I think it was Fano they were. So we headed up that way, and sure enough, we seen the sign 79th Fighter Group. You couldn't write a letter home of where you were, but they had group signs everywhere. So the Germans always knew where we were, so I don't know why they had objected to let us say where we were. And we turned the vehicles over, and when I got into the area, I had to build a camper out of a German truck, and there were 3 of us lived in it. And the 2 guys were with me, were already there, but my bed had about 40 packages on it because I had been away through birthday, and I got there just before Christmas. And of course, everybody was come into where they had their trailers to get their luggage out of because it had all the winter clothes and winter was settling in. So that's all I got to say. It's wonderful being with all you people. I will never forget it. Thank you for coming. Best of luck. That's all for tonight. If you can filter your way back across the street, and we'll have the hospitality room open, and if there's any last minute things you want, all those patches and buttons I got there, you're either going to buy them or I'm going to throw them away. I've hauled them for 15 years.
They get better, yeah.
Are you ready now?
I'm going.
Okay. So you were shot down.
Well, I was shot down on the 31st of December, 1944, over northern Yugoslavia.
Oh, uh-huh.
We were on a weather recce mission.
So
There's
you
two of
pronounce
us.
that recce?
Well, that's short for reconnaissance.
Yeah, that's what I
Okay,
thought that
I've
was.
seen that in the material, but I didn't know
Yeah.
what that meant.
Right.
Okay.
And it was just a two-ship mission to go over to the target area for the day and check on the weather and report back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we did. And after we had reported the weather back, we were free to seek out targets of opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
which normally meant
Trains.
choo-choo trains. Yeah. And we went after the first train, which was in a very deep valley between two rather
Yeah.
steep mountains. And Harry Bartley was the flight leader. And you had to watch out for that mountain when he pulled up. And I listened to him, but I almost ran into the top of the mountain myself.
Oh.
So when we saw the next train, we didn't make that mistake again. We went in head on,
Uh-huh.
which we don't normally do.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you'd normally come up behind or from
We
the
normally
side?
come from the side,
Yeah.
yeah. And so we shot at that train, but unfortunately it had a flat car on it, and it got me in the engine, which started to burn, and I
Had like a gun on it for flak? Or?
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I just pulled up as high as I could get and remembered the information that was in the PIF, which was the pilot's information file, it's a thick book they give.
Mm-hmm.
And it said to slow it up as much as you can, stand up in the seat and dive for the right wing tip.
Oh.
And that way you slide off the edge of the wing and miss the tail.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, good luck. I don't think he ever had tried that himself, whoever wrote this. But anyway, I got about halfway out of the cockpit and was plastered around against the side of the fuselage.
Like the air
By the-
pressure was
by-
holding
yeah,
you there,
yeah.
centrifugal force?
And that's the last I remember.
Oh my.
Next thing I knew, I was sitting in the snow on the ground, and there were,
Well, your chute opened up?
well, it had to have.
Had to. You were up in the air, so
Yeah.
it had to open somehow.
So-
didn't it?
There were, several dozen people standing around in a big circle, and I was
Uh-huh.
sitting there in the snow, quite dazed,
Yeah.
and I started looking around, and I didn't have a parachute on.
Huh.
I didn't have my helmet on. I didn't have my boots on.
Uh-oh.
And what apparently had happened, I was, bruised and stuff. I apparently had landed in a tree, and they had gotten me down out of the tree, but I was unconscious. And so they took me to a farmhouse, and I tried to convey the wish to be put in touch with the partisans in hopes of evading capture, but I was, still kind of in shock, and I got the impression that, they were taking care of that. But about 15 minutes later, in march two Wehrmacht guys with machine pistols, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They marched me down to the local military base there in the local nearest town, and
What country was this in?
this was in northern Yugoslavia,
Okay.
which is now Slovenia.
All right.
And the town that we were nearest was Celje, C-E-L-J-E. So they took me down there for interrogation, and it's sort of a humorous thing happened while we were there. One of the enlisted men there said something about, "Boy, you speak lousy English."
Wonder what made him an authority.
And then I hit on a Mae West.
Uh-huh.
Remember the Mae
Yeah,
West?
yeah.
And they didn't apparently know exactly what it was. And what's this? And he pulls on the, and all this orange stuff goes all over the floor, you know. This was a shark repellent.
Oh.
And
So he didn't inflate it, he released the repellent.
yeah. So they sent one of the flunkies out to get a pail and a mop, and they made the mistake of getting it wet. What a mess they made on the floor. But anyway, they took me to a local political prison in town, which was, you know, like you see in the old movies, all stone with the little, your cell is, well, 6 by 8 feet, and there's a pallet in one corner and a bucket in the other corner, and that's it.
Mm.
And a little tiny window way up on the wall someplace. And I was there for 3 or 4 days. And finally, early in the morning on the 3rd or 4th day, 2 guards came in and marched me down to the local train station. And we got on a train and headed north. And after the sun came up, we were looking out, and it was a beautiful day, and I said, oh. And sure enough, in about 10 minutes along came 4 P-51s.
Oh.
And they started shooting up the train.
Oh.
And these were all wooden coaches. And there were splinters flying all over the place, and everybody just dove off the airplane and ran for the woods. And I ran faster than my guards did, I think. And they lost me for a little while, but they would manage to catch up to me. And we were there for the rest of the day. I remember they took me to an old farmhouse to get something to drink. And the old farmer there, he was a big, very rotund fellow, and, you know, very gnarled. And he rolls himself a cigarette and puts it in his mouth. And he takes the cover off the stove and reaches in and picks up a red-hot coal and lights his cigarette with
You
it,
mean
with his bare hands.
With his bare hand?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Amazing.
Mm.
So anyway, another train was brought in, and they took us to an Air Force, a Luftwaffe base in Graz, Austria. And we were there for about 10 days. It was a collecting point for Allied airmen that had been shot down in World War II in the Balkans. And once
Looking for Beijing to say goodbye, but I don't see him.
I don't see him either.
See him either. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
And where were we?
You're at that Luftwaffe camp?
Oh, yes,
Base.
and we were there for about 10 days, as I said. And when they had collected enough people, they loaded us all on a train, some of these old coaches, and this is the middle of the winter now.
Mm-hmm.
And we went all the way across Germany in these old coaches. I just about froze to death.
Mm.
There were about 14 of us, I believe. And I can remember we finally pulled into the marshalling yards in Frankfurt, Germany, late in the day, and they kept us on the train. And sometime that night, there was a air raid by the British. And there were bombs falling all over the place. And here we just sat there on the train and hoped for the best. It all worked out all right.
Yeah.
Were like holding you in the train?
Yeah. And the next morning they took us from Frankfurt to the interrogation center, which was in the northern outskirts there someplace. And that's where they put you in solitary and try to get information out of you. And they were very good at it because, you know, basically they use psychology more than torture or anything like that.
What type of psychology would they use?
Well,
being a psychologist myself, I'm
Oh, really?
interested, yes.
well, they would point out that, you know, we're all flyers, we're all nice guys, but we don't really know who you are. You know, unless we can determine where you came from, what outfit you were with, we'll just have to assume that you're an enemy agent and turn you over to the Gestapo.
Spy, huh?
Ah.
So that's how they tried to get information about what unit you were with and all that.
Because the treatment of a spy would be very different than
Oh yeah,
an airman.
the Gestapo had a very bad reputation for things like that. But when they were unsuccessful with that, they'd put you back in solitary again for 3 or 4 days, and then bring you in for another interrogation session. But when they were convinced that you really didn't know anything that they needed to know, they trotted out what they knew. And they had more information on me than I knew about myself.
Oh, no kidding.
Really?
They knew where I graduated from in the States, what ship I came over on.
Oh my gosh.
How would they get all that?
I don't know. Their intelligence was just phenomenal. And I've heard the same from, you know, other POWs. Yeah. It was really quite amazing. And I was there, I don't know, about probably 12 days altogether. And then they send you up to a Red Cross camp in Wetzlar for a couple of days where they give you a few things like an old wool overcoat and a scarf to put over your head and what else? Toothbrush.
Toothbrush, yeah.
That was about it. And then we went on, put on a train and taken to our permanent camp, which in my case was Nuremberg, which was a former Russian camp. And it was not in very good condition. And it was full of fleas and lice and all those kind of things, you know. But we were there. I must have gotten there sometime late in January. And we were there until early April when the Germans decided that the Americans were getting too close and they were going to march us to Austria, to the mountains.
Oh, yeah.
So They marched us out of there, about 10,000 strong. And we marched for about 10 days. And we ended up in Moosburg, which is on the outskirts of Munich, northern outskirts. And we were in Munich. Well, on the way down, it was quite strange because the guards sort of lost control of the whole situation. And every time we'd come through a populated area, people would start taking off to the farmhouses to see if they could get something to eat, you know. And the guards finally just gave up. They let anybody do pretty much what they wanted to.
Really?
Yeah.
Would people walk off and just desert or leave?
A few did, but on the whole, no. Because it was much safer to stay together as a group.
Did you know that the war was about over then?
Well, we didn't. But I think the Germans had a pretty good notion of what was about to happen. It was the SS that was providing all of the resistance. And if there was an SS unit in a town up ahead, our guards wouldn't go through there. They would take us on a big detour around where the SS detachment was. So in that sense, they were protecting us in a sense. But anyway, we arrived in Moosburg, on the outskirts of Moosburg, on the day FDR died. And one of the Germans came by on a bicycle and told us that had happened. So we were in Moosburg in tents for about a week. And then one morning we started to hear artillery fire, and it was an advanced unit of Patton's. I forget which army it was, Third Army, I think. And the SS in town put up quite a fight. In fact, we were told later that Spearhead had more resistance there in Munich than they had since they crossed the Rhine. Then we were, basically laying in the dirt most of the day because there were bullets flying all over the place and making all of the tents pretty much full of holes. But it was towards evening when the flag in Moosburg, the swastika came down and the stars and stripes went up.
No kidding.
So that was quite an event.
What was that like to see that happen?
Oh boy, that was the best thing we'd seen in a long time.
I bet so.
So this was what, in the later part of April or something?
Just the latter part of April, yeah. In fact, we were liberated, I believe it was the 28th of April.
28th of April, yeah. I don't know, was that the official end of the war, or I think it was...
No, it was May 6th.
May 6th?
Yeah. So anyway, we stayed in camp for a couple days. They finally flew C-47s in and picked us up and flew us to Le Havre. Remember, the C-47s got lost trying to find us. So on the way back to the coast, they were running short on fuel, so we had to land at some air base on the French border there somewhere. So we landed there so they could get gassed up and almost ran into a shell hole, but we missed it anyway. But the mess sergeant opened up the mess and opened up these great big gallon tins of peanut butter and jam and loaves of bread. Here, fellas, help yourself. My God, we just...
Well, did you lose...
Did we make ourselves sick, or did we make ourselves sick?
Did you lose much weight during that time, or...?
I went from, in 4 months, I went from 160 to 110.
Oh my.
No, they didn't feed us well at all.
Yeah.
There were Red Cross parcels that was supposed to be 1 parcel per man per week. They were provided by the U.S. and also Canada. But we never got more than a quarter parcel, and that was just off and on. It wasn't a regular thing at all. The problem was that the transportation system in Germany had just about completely collapsed by that time in the war, and they couldn't move stuff from one place to another. So anyway, they took us to Le Havre to a rest camp, Camp Lucky Strike, and they put us on a special diet to try and bring us back to
Bring you back
normal.
up slowly, huh?
Yeah. And we were there until early June, early May, and finally we got on a ship and stopped in Southampton, England, to pick up some nurses, and all of a sudden all the ship's horns started to blow, and said, "What's going on?" It was VE Day. June, May 6th, yeah. So that was about it. We crossed the ocean without any problem and came into Boston, and we're taken to Camp Miles Standish, and then we went on rest leave to Atlantic City, New Jersey.
Oh. Well, then did you stay in after?
No.
You got out. When did you
no.
get out of service then?
Well, we were in training in Selma, Alabama, when VJ Day came along. We were supposedly being trained for the Pacific. You know? And so as soon as VJ Day happened, I think it was the next day, as I remember, another fellow that used to be a Flying Tiger lived up in New England, and he wanted to know whether I'd like to come with him, and I said sure, and we took off for home in his car, and made it all the way up, and that was about it. As soon as I was able to, I got mustered out.
Well, where were you mustered out at?
Fort Devens.
Where's that?
It's in Stowe, Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Mhm.
Well, I was on leave on, what do you call it, the end of the war over there in Japan. So then I went out to Santa Ana, from Indiana, and I went out to Santa Ana, California to get. And that was a nice little trip out there on the train. And then we were out there, I don't know, I was out there for maybe a couple of weeks, I reckon, before they let me out.
So what's VE and VJ?
Victory in Europe and Victory in Japan.
Okay. Guess I didn't know that.
Well, I knew you'd been shot down, but I never heard your whole story. And I'm glad you shared it with us, because I know my son here is interested in that. And he was listening. He was taped Phil Bajan the other night. He was telling some of his story.
Oh boy, he really had some experiences. Yeah.
Yeah. I tell you. He was quite a guy.
He was.
Or is. He still is.
Yeah, that's right.
But I don't think there was too many pilots trying to pull all the stunts he did.
Yeah, it's there.
We'd all been dead if we'd have tried that.
Either that or court-martial.
He was a commander. He was with the 84th Flight Squad.
I don't know, you have a completely different outlook on life when you're young like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you're in the mode of it can't happen to me. You know?
That's right. You're invincible.
Right.
Just indestructible.
And
See that in my 18-year-old son.
This was on the
Yeah.
plane. So.
Well, I appreciate you sharing.
Well, you're certainly
that
welcome.
event.
Thank you.
On his plane.
Now you'll have
he
something to
had
show your son,
the
won't
guy
you?
That's
put
right.
this on the- So when the general came around and said, put some
No, it's
clothes
funny
on,
because
that's what-
So many young people today,
On the table.
they don't even know who was fighting who in World War II.
Yeah, they don't even know anything about
Yeah,
it.
They-
we had thunderbolts.
They have history in school, but they never get up as far as World War II, you know. By the time they get out of high
And then we
school,
have the,
they're only up to the Civil War or something like that.
The British.
Yes.
No, a lot of people didn't know
Yeah.
that was American Day.
Yeah, I
Then when
don't
I tell
know.
them, what do you think we won?
Now my son has his grandfather's brother was also a POW. He was in the army.
Gonna show you that
And,
second picture.
So my father-in-law tells his story of a Russian soldier taking him out of a camp and getting him food. It's pretty interesting.
No, the
Grease or Vaseline? Grease.
give you an idea, the daily
You wouldn't know what Vaseline.
rations that you got in prison camp were pretty much always the
He
same.
made sure.
You got hot water about 8 o'clock in the morning, a
morning.
cup of hot water.
When
And
the engines came.
if you had any
box,
leftover
take them out of the box
instant
and
coffee
change the
or
accessories.
tea from your Red Cross parcels, which we usually did,
Starter, generator.
you could use it for that, or you could use it to shave with. It was whatever, up to you.
Just
whatever
a
you
cup
want.
of hot water.
A cup of hot water, yeah. And
Bet you
then-
didn't do too much
2800
shaving.
horsepower engine.
Not every day, no.
2800.
And then, about 11 o'clock or so, they brought you soup ration.
P40s, we had 1200
And we called it the Green Death.
I didn't mean to take
It
your.
was a dark green color.
Yeah, he's,
And it
he's
had
a.
some kind of
At the
leafy
table, he
stuff
asked
in
me,
it.
what are all these blue rivers
And
mean? So
never had any meat in it,
this is how it
except
changed
for
the P40 engine. See, this was liquid cooled.
occasionally would have a few weevils in it. That was the only protein that you got.
I'm coming up with a piece of paper.
Oh, okay.
And then in the afternoon, around 2 or 3 o'clock, the potato ration.
Yeah, I will.
Oh, no,
I'll get it.
the soup also included a bread ration.
Yeah,
which
this
was
was
an
at
8 to the
our
loaf
reunion
of
in
black bread.
1999.
Slice
At
about
Dayton,
that thick.
Ohio. If you ever get to Dayton, Ohio, there's a.
Which was made out of
museum there,
sawdust, yeah,
Lake
that's right.
Patterson Air Force Base, and a memorial garden.
Mm.
And then in the
we're
afternoon,
standing
they
in the memorial
brought a
garden.
potato ration. You got 2
We
or 3.
have a pyramid here
So big
with all our
potatoes.
credentials on it.
Mm.
And that was it as far as.
Well, let's see, so, you see
A
from
wooden
December,
box
what,
camera,
7th
this big on a
to
tripod. And he lined us up like this.
May
And he
the
said, now.
Well,
I was just
all
about
stand
4 months. It was
perfectly
in the
still.
end of
that you had to
December
live
until.
on that sort of
He
stuff.
started
Oh, yeah.
at this end, and that camera slowly.
No wonder you lost
turned like
50
this,
pounds.
Oh, I know.
Down to the end.
I
I
know.
said, okay, now you can move.
Did you feel pretty weak at
That's
that
all
point
one piece
to lose that
that's
much
put
weight?
together.
I don't think we really
I've
felt
never seen a
weak.
camera like that.
Um,
You remember that camera, Jim?
You know, the main thing that we talked about, of course, was food.
Oh, I see what you mean.
And
Undressing girls.
one thing that,
That's the pilot.
you know, when you're well fed, you probably talk more about girls than anything else. That was the furthest thing from our mind, was girls at that.
Food was the main
Food was the only
He
thing. Right?
passed away. Yeah, he came
That's
from
something.
Brigham Canyon, Utah.
Vargas.
But then we would have
With all these,
When we went over
the
to
bread
see
ration.
and
the star, you know,
whatever
the star
pilot
that we
wanted
have,
people.
Well, what we had was
it's all white now.
And one day we had
groups
a
of 4.
So when we overseas, they get notes come through that in
This general
Japan,
comes through and he
the
said,
pilots were
I like your
Would get together as an eating group. And that was because of this parcel business. We had a quarter parcel occasionally, Red Cross parcel. And so 4 guys had to share it. And we would share the,
What all was in the parcel?
oh, I can't remember everything, but they, the can of dried milk,
I'm waiting for our friend.
a couple of cans of sea rations, a box of sugar, a D-bar,
There's a book about my out.
4 packs of cigarettes,
This picture.
a box of dried fruit, That was about it.
Mhm.
And instant coffee or
One of the
tea.
originators of Tickman Air Command for some
That's when I
first bunch that
actually
tried
started to smoke.
that. When I was in
We
Bedford,
had cigarettes, but much sticky.
there was a P-40 out, I was on guard, and I was told not to.
But we used to
let
save the
dinner put down
crust of the bread.
Yeah.
Cut the crust off and saved them for 4 of us.
Oh,
And after a week,
And they did that, it was beautiful.
we'd have what they call a bash.
We
take those crusts and put them in water until they'd all swell up. And then we'd make a sauce out of the D-bar and
What's
powdered
it?
milk.
What's a D-bar?
It's a chocolate bar
Chocolate
that's
bar?
a tropical chocolate bar that
Oh.
won't melt when it gets warm, you know.
And they sick me up, next
And
to the
we'd
wings,
heat that up and put the sauce over it and eat until we couldn't eat anymore. That's
You
what
really
we
had
call
a-
the bash.
You
Yeah.
had a real
Right. Hmm.
Anyway, it was interesting.
Yeah. Now, what did you do after you got out of the service?
Well, I went to Purdue University.
Oh,
They had just started a new air transportation school. And I signed up for that and went through, got my degree and went to work at Logan International Airport
Logan International?
as an operations supervisor. And basically, I worked there
Look at, see that engine he
my
showed
whole
you?
working life.
Well,
And
this is a Thunderbolt.
I ended up as
Look at how big
assistant director of aviation. But it got very political and I didn't really enjoy it that much.
You know, I was just telling my wife that, or my son here, I think that, I don't know, most of the people, pilots that came back from overseas are all pretty successful in one way or another. A lot of them went back to school and Harry Powell graduated from Purdue also. He was in the 85th.
That's a night, we helped through the different.
Well, it was great. I mean, the government was paying you way, and in fact, they were giving you money to go to school.
Yeah, I sort of bombed out on that. I didn't take advantage of that.
Well, you go ahead.
You know, and I got,
He sold these $1 each. These are the last ones, I bought a whole box.
an A&E license while I was, aircraft and
And my children, they won the hat.
engine, aircraft, airframe and engine license,
Oh,
mechanics license,
mechanics.
which I never used except on my own airplanes.
They're all nice.
And
Do you still have an airplane or?
I'm building one.
You're building one.
In
Yeah,
Italy.
it's a light
And then
amphibian,
the nut was when we were there.
but I don't know if I'll ever finish it.
Well, I was gonna say, look here recently, I don't know, it's a pilot, I think he was 89 years old. I think it was down this area someplace that, the crashed or landed without putting his wheels down. I guess he made a good landing.
Yeah,
I-
well, you know,
That's there.
I appreciate you sharing that, Mr. Bride.
well, thank you.
It's a real privilege.
I don't tell that story very often.
You know, I knew part of your story, but I'd never heard the whole story before.
Of course, there's a lot more to it, but we don't have days and days.
Yeah.
Hmm.
How many missions did you fly?
Just 40 when I got
40
shot
was
down.
when you were shot down?
Yeah. No, I came in with